Okay, so I am going to start a video and finish it on factoring trinomials. We started this Friday, which is today, still Friday. And your homework will be to factor by grouping in the workbook, and that will be it. I'm going to move the factoring trinomials to Monday, and you'll have about 3 warm-ups on Monday because we'll cover 3 concepts to make sure that you all are grasping this. All right, so this is where we talked about. I didn't go too much into detail unless you was in third block and you saw more detail in the fourth block because we ran out of time because I was dealing with Jordan and his abilities. So we ran out of a little time there. And so, yeah. So it says, how's the sign of C dictating to B? Is there a rule that can help you? All right, so the sign of C, because I know some people in the other block didn't get either. The sign of C is positive, which means that let's make sure we understand it. Find 2 factors of C, whose sum is B. I'm on lava, my favorite. All right, so C has factors that multiply to give you 30, but they're going to add to give you negative 13. Well, you can make a factor tree, you can make a table on the side, or you can do mental math. A lot of this stuff I'm going to require mental math. So factors of, some people make this X. This X may help some of y'all too. So when you make the X, you put, and I'm trying to remember how people make it. So you put the C here, and then you put the B there, and you're like, okay, what multiplies to 30 and gives you negative 13? And so you're like, negative 3 and negative 10. Okay, some people make that X to help them build it. It's the same thinking, but you kind of like see it all together. You know, you put your C here, you put your B here, and you're like negative 10 and negative 3, multiply to give you 30, but add to give you negative 13. So you'll see that from time to time. So one thing I did not stress, and I don't do a good job every year stressing this, so I'm going to do a good job this year stressing this, is that this first term is made up of your first term. So n squared is factored into n times n. Okay, so FOIL first, the first term, and then the last terms are where these come from, and then your OI, your outer and inner, comes from the combination of this. Now I said this. So that would be negative 3 and negative 10. Now order doesn't matter. Signs do matter. Okay, so what is C doing? C is saying if C is positive and this is negative, then you know that you're going to have 2 negative numbers, because the only way that you get a positive number is to multiply 2 negatives to get a positive, and to end up with a negative, you have to add. So if you have to add, the only way that you can get that is for both numbers to be negative, because 2 negatives make a positive when multiplying, and 2 negatives make a negative when adding. I'm turning this off because it's getting on my nerves. All right, so what's the rule? Well, we'll talk about that next. All right, because I'm going to give y'all a general rule. So negative, how is C negative dictating to B that's positive? Well, this negative sign, the only way I can get a negative by multiplying is that one number has to be negative and one number has to be positive. But that's dictating to B. Actually, B is kind of dictating, well, they're dictating to both each other, to each other rather. Because in order for it to be positive, then the larger number has to be positive. So what 2 numbers are going to multiply to give you negative 16 but add to give you 6? So you can make your little thing right here, negative 16 and 6. And the factors of negative 16, well, I know 8 and 2 will subtract to give me 6, but the 8 has to be positive because this sign is positive. So therefore, we're going to have a positive 8 and a negative 2. Well, I put plus just by mistake. Okay, and for this one, how is C dictating to B? Well, if this is negative and this is negative, then the only way for me to get a negative is to have a negative and a positive. But if I have a negative and a positive, this sign is negative, so the larger number has to be negative. So if I make my little X here and I put negative 20 here, my X needs to be larger because clearly I can't fit anything in that little X. And then I put negative 1 here. Well, what numbers are going to, well, I know that negative 5 and a positive 4 multiply to give me negative 20, but add to give me a negative 1. So this is minus 5, this is plus 4. Okay? So now we have our term. So how is that dictating? Well, if this is negative and this is negative, then I know that the numbers should be negative and one number should be positive, but the larger of the two, I hate saying larger because -5 is not larger than 4, but it has more negatives than positives. So that's what I mean. The larger of the two has to be negative. So this is the easy shortcut, and there will be a quiz on this, and you might want to pay attention to this. Well, you should pay attention to this because there will be a quiz on this. Easy little quiz. So what is this sign doing? So what if I know this video, I'm making it longer by explaining this, but you need to know it. What if I have ax squared plus bx plus c? If this number is, if this sign is positive, it's saying both of the signs will be the same. Why does that make sense? Because a negative times a negative is a positive. Let me go here. Yeah, a negative times a negative is a positive. I'm gonna erase this. You won't have the ability to erase it. So notice that both signs are positive, right? So this says if this is positive, you're gonna have the same sign. Either both signs will be negative or both signs are gonna be positive. How do you know? You look at this sign. Because the only way for you to get a positive number by multiplying and getting a positive b is both numbers are positive. So this says, hey, both signs are going to be the same, but the sign's going to be positive. If this is positive and this is negative, it's still the same sign, but because a negative times a negative is a positive, but both numbers have to be negative. So what is this sign doing? I'm going to say it again. If you don't get it, you need to go back and repeat it so that you can get it, okay? I'm saying if this is positive, this means same sign. This says what kind of sign, what sign you're going to have. You're going to have the same sign. It's going to be a positive, or you're going to be adding. You're going to have the same sign. This says, hey, you're going to have negative. Both numbers will be negative because a negative times a negative is a positive, and a negative plus a negative is a negative. Okay? What about this? This and this. Different signs. So what if I have different signs? Well, sorry, I'm saying different signs. I should say negative. So what if this is negative? This is saying, oh, we're going to have two different signs because the only way for you to get a negative by multiplying is having a negative and a positive. You tell me whether or not it's going to be, the larger number is going to be positive. So the larger of the two has to be positive. The larger of the two has to be negative. That is what that means. Okay? So same sign, positive sign or an addition sign means same signs. You let me know whether those signs are negative. Negative sign means different signs. You let me know whether the larger of the two is positive or the larger of the two is negative. So I don't spend about 7 minutes in explaining that because you need to know that because I'm going to put that on the quiz. All right. So let's get to factoring some of these. I'm not going to factor them all. Some of them will be for homework so that we can check tomorrow. Well, that's going to be Monday. This video is not going to be that long, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? All right, this says, hey, you're adding. So that means you only have the same sign. What are they going to be the signs? The signs are going to be negative. So, again, if I want to draw my x, again, I do want you to draw your x in the beginning until you become great at this. So 63 comes here. Negative 16 goes there. So what two numbers multiply to give you 63? But they're going to add. One is going to be negative and one is going to be positive to give you negative 16. I'll give you a chance to think. Again, same sign. Both numbers have to be negative. So a negative 9 and a negative 7 will give us that. So how do we set this up? The binomial. I need to put this down. Sorry, I hear a whole bunch of noise. So this needs to be d minus 7. Again, d minus 9. Run out of room. It does not matter if you put d minus 9 first. It doesn't matter. Okay, so if that helps you, if this right here helps you, use it, y'all. Use it. If you can, more of a mental math person, you can do it in your head, use it. All right? And we can use the OI, which is the outer and inner term, to check to make sure we're right. All right, so negative 7 times negative 9 is 63. That's how we know we're right there. And negative 7, d, and negative 9, d, outer and inner should equal that, which is negative 16d. Okay. All right, so look at this one. So this is a different sign. That means it's a negative. I keep saying the answer before. Yeah. So negative. This is negative, so that means that the larger of the two will be negative, people. So I know I'm going to have two different signs. This breaks down into x times x. That's my first term. That's how I factor that. And then I know one is going to be positive, one is going to be negative, because I just know that based on what we just discovered. So the larger is going to be negative. So what gives you 55? Take a moment. All right, 11 and 5. So we get 11 and put 5 here, and we end up 5x plus a negative 11x is negative 6x, and 5 times negative 11 is negative 55. So we're good. We check that. Okay, so this says, hey, I'm going to have the same sign, and both of those signs are going to be negative. X. Both of those numbers are going to be negative. All right, so 30 breaks down into 3 and 10, and 2 and 15, and what? 6 and 5. All right. The only two numbers that add together to give you a negative 11 will be 6 and 5. That's that. Now, this one people get confused about because they're not understanding what this and this breaks down into. So I'm going to do this to just help your life out. So I know that the first terms is made up of x. This says positive and positive, so I know my sign. So we look at the 3. And 3, the only two factors that 3 can break up into is 3 and 1. But there's a y here. So your last term must multiply to give you 3y squared. So we're not just going to put a 3 here. We're going to put a 3y. We're not just going to put a 1 here. We're going to put a y. All right. And that is why this is the case, because 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 plus 1 is 4. Okay, and so this last term must be made up of this, which is 3y times y, which is 3 squared. Remember, the first terms go here. The last terms multiplied go here. The outer and the inner combine to give you this. I need y'all to understand that. You have to understand that. Okay, so again, doesn't matter if I give another variable, that foils to give me that. All right, so we're going to do these last 3, and my video will be done. And then you're going to finish these for homework. This one right here, think about it. Put it in standard form. Come on, y'all. Put it in standard form. And we're not even there yet. All right, let's do an easy one. All right, so this said, hey, keep the signs the same. I might skip this one because I feel like I've been doing a lot of these. And then keep the signs different. Well, what am I talking about? Keep the signs the same and keep them negative. So x and x. And then negative and negative. And so, well, 2 is prime. So, I mean, you can only get 1 and 2, y'all. Easy problem. All right, I've done 2 negatives. I've done a positive and negative. I've done a positive and negative. I've done a positive and negative. I've done 2 positives. So it really doesn't matter what I do from here. All right, but that's the little fancy one. I'm going to let y'all do that one because it reminds you of this one. This reminds you of this. And I don't have to do another one. So let's just cut the video short. So again, to remember, everybody, please remember this, that this sign right here tells you whether you're going to have the same or different signs. If it's positive, that means I'm going to have the same sign. You look here and say, well, the same sign has to be negative because a negative times a negative is a positive, a negative plus a negative is a negative. This sign, if it's different, you look here and say, oh, well, they're going to be different signs, but one's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. The larger of the two will be positive. The larger of the two will be negative. All right, we are done.